Here's something potentially interesting. We're quite near to Lyndhurst, actually probably nearer to Emery Down in the New Forest, and this is a thing called Portuguese Fireplace. And I've no idea why it's here. Now on the Google Maps view there was a little plaque here that explains hopefully what it was about, but there's nothing. So no idea what this is about. I'll see if I can find some information about this and put it on the screen while you're watching this. I don't think this was part of a house. I wonder if this was originally something, well, it's made of concrete, so this could be something that was built by the forces people when they were stationed here during the war. We're not very far away from Stony Cross Airfield, so this might have been something built by soldiers or Air Forcemen. You alright? Where is it? Eva. You lost it. Here, how about this one? Don't eat stones. Eva, how about this one? This one. In the middle of February 2022, Storm Eunice tore through the southern half of the UK with record-breaking winds, some really severe damage, and sadly loss of several lives. I was lucky enough only to sustain a minor bit of damage to a garden fence, but a house in our village had a huge tree fall on it, damaging the roof and walls. I'm sure this is going to be covered by insurance, but still not a nice thing to happen to your house. The tree was removed and cut up by a crew that worked through the night, and they left a big pile of cut logs. It's pretty much a convention that a pile of logs left like this will be picked over by people who will take them for firewood or whatever. I couldn't resist picking up a piece, and I'm going to carve an enormous spoon out of it. This video will just cover the rough carving. I'll finish it later when it's dried out some more. Carving a spoon is actually really straightforward. You begin with a piece of wood and simply remove all the pieces that are not a spoon, releasing the hidden spoon from its wooden prison. This isn't entirely a joke. I'll come back to that thought a little later. I'm just using a cheap hatchet that I bought in a DIY store to rough out the shape, starting with rounding the end where the bowl will be. I had a bit of a false start with this, so I just chopped off the piece that went wrong and started again. Next I'll make a couple of deep notches at the handle end of the bowl of the spoon. Then I can start to thin down the handle and refine the shape a little bit. Now lots of things can go wrong with this process, but hurting myself with the axe isn't really one of them. The camera might make it look like I'm swinging the blade quite close to myself, but in fact the plane in which it's swinging doesn't come close to me. That's fairly important for safety. But there is one thing in particular to think about with where the blade is going. That is where it will go if it misses the cut. Not just for safety, although that is vital, but also if the axe misses the wood, I don't want it hitting stone. So that's the reason I'm doing all this work on a wooden board. It's also the reason for cutting those notches behind the bowl of the spoon. Wood will split very easily along the grain, and this is a very straight grained piece of wood. So those notches make sure that when the wood splits off, as I shave down the handle, the split just stops in that notch. And yeah, this is going to be a really large spoon. Not as big as my walking spoon, but a big spoon nonetheless. I want this to be a spoon that cannot be easily ignored. A spoon with some gravitas, if you will. The fallen tree was a lime tree, which you might know as linden or basswood, but usually called lime in the UK. Confusing name, not related to the citrus fruit, but that's what it's called. The timber is rather soft for a hardwood, and lovely to carve, probably not ideal for making a wooden spoon. But this spoon isn't going to be used every day. It's going to be more of a sort of ceremonial spoon, so I reckon it'll be fine. I want a sort of broad flat bit on the opposite end of the handle, so I'll reserve that in the same way I did for the bowl by notching the wood to stop the cut there. As I get closer to the final diameter of the handle, it becomes a little more likely that the axe might skip, and then in following through, chip off a big chunk from the side of the bowl. So two things I do to mitigate that. One is to make a series of cuts in the side of the handle, and then remove material in smallish pieces. The other is to grasp the axe higher up the handle. Not proper technique for cutting firewood, but useful when axe carving, because it reduces the power of each stroke and also makes the cuts generally more accurate and controllable. Then it's just a case of chipping and shaving away at anything that seems to be sticking out, until we arrive at more or less a rough spoon shape. And that's the serious side of the joke about cutting away the parts that are not a spoon. Once the rough shape starts to form, it really is a bit like that. The parts that shouldn't be there become more and more obvious, and so I just chip away at them. I switched to a small carving adze to take some material out of the bowl. This is the place where it could all go very wrong quite quickly, and one missed stroke could cut into the edges of the bowl in a way that ruins the whole piece. So again, controlled, smallish strokes here, just to try to chip away some of the bulk of that material. Then over to a spoon carving knife and a bowl gouge to remove some more material, and the rough carving of the spoon is nearly done. Now this piece was carved from green wood, so it will need to be dried, and if that happens too fast, it could crack. I mean, there's a risk of that anyway, but the rough cut spoon shape is more or less the same thickness of wood in every part, so should hopefully dry more evenly than just a log. I wrapped it up in heavy brown paper, and this will just buffer the drying process and prevent it from happening too fast. It should only take about a month or so in total to dry sufficiently. And so here it is a couple of weeks later at the start of March, and it's now dry enough that I can remove the paper and let it continue drying in the open. A couple more weeks and I reckon it will be ready for finished carving. So that's as far as I'll take this spoon in this video. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.